Welcome, Marvelites, and welcome to an all-new episode of the MCU Exchange Podcast. This is going to be a very special episode because this will be an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. centric episode. So let's get right to it. My name is Aaron. I'll be your host for this episode. Alongside me today is Joe.
Hello.
Yep, Charles has to set this one out because it's going to be a nerdy version of an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. Yeah, so but before that, we just want to give a shout out to all our listeners over at Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, Google Podcasts, and Breaker. If you're asking, where can we listen to the podcast? You can just search MCU Exchange Podcast over the platforms that I've mentioned earlier. And also, for more information, you can also like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/MCU Exchange, the MCU Exchange. Sorry about that. You can also follow us on Twitter and join the conversation at twitter.com/MCU Exchange. So let's get right to it in this very special Shieldapalooza episode of the MCU Exchange Podcast. Here is the rundown. First up, a new clip has been released. The first official clip of the upcoming season 7 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that will premiere next week on the 27th on ABC. And it involves a pretty fun conversation between the lifelong decoy of Phil Coulson, Daisy Johnson, aka Quake, director Alfonso Mackenzie, Mac, and Deke Shaw. And what's interesting about this conversation, because it's like a mimicry of of what Ancient One explained to Hulk during Avengers Endgame. It's about the timelines, about the butterfly effect. And Joe, when you first saw this clip from the first episode, what are your thoughts about it? Did it give you Endgame vibes or MCU vibes?
I have to say, from the explanation, yeah, it was pretty much just similar. I just think it's funny to compare the Ancient One to Deke Shaw, which is just an ironic comparison.
Yeah.
But the fun thing, I have to say, though, thinking back to when Agent Carter first released, the production design, the production value looks amazing. That really was a very well shot sequence. And I mean, they did quite a bit in a short thing, a lot about, talking about the Great Depression, people out of time, the references, and even like some very good reflection of how people treated people back in the day with Mac's comments. So it's a really good introduction to, hey, we are from the future. This is a new timeline. We need to be careful, but the usual fears you would have when traveling time. And it's funny to think Daisy, the one who always went off on her own, always did whatever the fuck she wanted, is the one to be like, we should be really careful here.
They should be, because they're I don't know if the rules in Endgame applies to the time travel rules in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we're going to find out. But it's a good thing that they're aware of it. Like Coulson is there, of course, but they're aware of they shouldn't meddle with the timeline. I don't know if they will, if they meddle, they will spread out the timeline. They will add another timeline, like an Endgame or something like that. But it's interesting to find out that this will be like an episodic form of how the multiverse will be explained. Like in Endgame, we saw that explained in a bit, but now we're going to spend every week. We're going to spend every week finding out how the multiverse works, at least for the Marvel TV side, and that would be a point of comparison in the big screen aspect. Yes, Joe.
It will be interesting to see if they actually, reconnected in a way, because season 5, in my eyes, the ending is pretty much still to some degree, you could connect it to the original Avengers. But season 6 obviously skips the snap. Like, the snap didn't happen. So this will be interesting. I mean, it makes sense given the timeline topics, because as soon as they went into the future, they created their own timeline. And so it's so strange to say that the show kind of already jumped off from the original MCU concept if they find some way to bring it back or reconnect it in a way.
Yeah. And also the interesting, you mentioned the snap. One of the visual effects producer of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. recently replied to a tweet about the snap. And he said that we may need to watch season 7 to find out if the show will finally address the snap. So basically, it's really confusing. When you're a casual fan, when you watch the season premiere of season 6, it really is like during that first scene, like 1 year later, and then the snap as an address, it raises a lot of questions, and they didn't really, technically, they didn't really answer that during season 6, right? So
Yeah.
we're gonna find out season 7 finally if they went out alternate timeline, because in the talks in season 6 they went into the future. There might be a potential breach there, like when they came back to the present, they're already in a different timeline. So there's that clip. You can check that out on our website. That's www.mcexchange.com. There's also a breakdown then written by Richard. Also, going to the next news. Here's a very interesting quote. It's been revealed by Variety. In an interview with Variety, Clark Gregg, who plays the well-renowned Phil Coulson, the life model decoy version. I think we're going to talk, we're going to incorporate that LMD now to address the difference. He talked about the possibility of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. exploring other points in the timeline, because the trailers, the promos have only revealed that they will explore 1930s, and also they will move over to the 1950s during the Agent Carter series, because Daniel Sosa will be there. But Greg in that interview, Greg told Variety that it's possible that they will explore other timelines, other points in time. It's possibly the 80s, or possibly moving way beyond the 80s. Joe, what do you think of the implications of this, like exploring other timelines? Do they uh, will we finally see MCU heroes, or will we finally see other characters? But
That's a good question, because in some way they can utilize this time travel in very creative ways by connecting more to the MCU, or at least to the history of the MCU. We know that Agent Carter's back, but that's like the fact that they're going to the 1930s, talking about time travel with the TV shows. That is the one that makes the most sense, given that it's the
yeah,
only one that really connects on the TV side.
yes,
So I don't think we'll see Avengers. The thing is that personally, I think we'll get into it later when we to get to the exchange. There's only
yeah,
one MCU mainstay I would like to personally see, which is a perfect fit for like the ending of the show, because we know this is the final season. But what I would like to explore is either, because I think this is a small tidbit we kind of forget about Coulson, is that he was a history major, so he's a perfect character, and they teased that at the end of last season. So this is the question for me: is because does this become a history of the MCU, or, which probably fits the show better, a history of Hydra and Shield? Because the
yeah,
logo they use is the original logo from the 1930s. So the question for me becomes: are they just gonna like, we don't know a lot about this season. They get, like, last season, we're pretty much up in the air of where they're gonna go, and it's an exciting thing, but at the same time, I'm unsure if this will feel too loose, as so there's no real connection between the time eras, which I hope there is some red line that keeps them connected. It's such an odd thing, because time travel in a show like this is very unusual, because there's no real reason why they have to go through different time periods. So there's probably going to be some villain or some connection to a Hydra tease they had in the trailer that probably brings them through history. And I would like to explore that, bring back characters from Hydra history, and kind of showcase what that buildup was to the Winter Soldier, how that history happened, because we also had this Arnim Zola tease, who I think would be a great fit to return in Agent Carter as well.
and and there's this speculation been running around social media that Agents of Shield season 7 could finally resolve the cliffhanger ending of Agent Carter in a way,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So
I'm really hoping they do that.
yeah, because it's like the end of the era of Marvel TV, because Kevin Feige will be the one to uh, will be the one taking over, and that Disney Plus shows will usher in the new era of Marvel TV shows, TV
I
series.
wonder if he had some input too, given that this was still in production. I mean, it was filmed, but still a lot was in production when he took over.
Maybe there's going to be Easter eggs, of course. I think, but I think personally that there will be references to at least Captain America during that time.
Yeah.
Not an appearance per se, but like super soldier serum, Steve Rogers, maybe a poster, maybe that's the closest that we can get. Like that fans can fans can celebrate with that. You know?
Maybe he finally gets his fixed card collector cards back that were stained with his blood.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Maybe we can get a resolution to that as well. That maybe uh, we can see how he purchased it or how he came across it. Maybe, but
Mm.
we mentioned 1980s. Interesting about 1980s, Joe. Shield is active during the 1980s. Hank
Mm.
Pym and Janet Van Dyne are there. They're present during that time. They're prominent
True,
agents
yeah.
during that timeline, and also that decade, that 1980s to 1990s, that decade is where Daisy was born, Simmons was born, Fitz was born. So it's an interesting tidbit.
That would be actually the coolest way to make an episode is have cameos from Ant-Man and Wasp, but they're so small you don't see them.
Oh
They
yeah, yeah.
just, they're just standing around, get beat up by nothing, and then it's like, what the hell happened?
And also we in Endgame we also see a glimpse of 1971.
Mm.
1971, am I right? 1970, 1973. Uh, because Stark and Steve went there. But we can also explore that. They can also explore that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of going in there. So we're gonna fully explore this and then we move on to the exchange. So here in the exchange, we're gonna talk about a full blown Agents of Shield discussion. So
Woo.
here we're gonna talk about timelines, characters, villain, and the ending. So we're gonna start off first with, since we're talking about timelines, let's continue that conversation, shall we? So
Hmm.
we mentioned 1950s, we mentioned 1930s, we mentioned 1980s. Aside from that, you first, Joe. What do you think are the other timelines that the show will visit during the 13 episode arc?
So I think so. I hope that they jump back and forth, so it's not like a straight timeline.
Yeah,
So my guess would be after the 1930s, they probably go to the 80s because that's like one of the biggest parts of history we know about Shield, like you mentioned. Then potentially, I would like to see them jump to the timeline past the snap, the kind of so this might be a little bit later too, but I think something about whatever Fury is doing, that's connected to Shield, like the future of Shield, where is it heading, so we don't just explore like the past.
yeah.
And I would also think it'd be really cool if we look at um, pretty much the origins. We saw the origins of Hive, but we never saw the origins of like the first version of this cult that developed that would eventually become Hydra. So that'd be cool to even go before the 1930s. Like look at the 1800s or something like that to see like, oh, this is the cult. They land there. They try to help some people out, and then they find out that it's the cultists that would become the founders of Hydra, for example. So like have
Oh
a
yeah,
nice
yeah.
little twist in there as well.
Because they mentioned in the trailer that in order to save Shield, they need to save Hydra as well.
And I think that will be the through line of this season. I think it's going to be explore more of Shield and Hydra than the actual MCU because just it still is Agents of Shield. I mean, ironically, I still remember in the first season when it became Agents of Nothing, but because
Yeah,
they didn't have anything left. But
yeah.
they kept reviving Shield. That it feels like a nice note to talk about just how Shield is something that keeps returning, just like Hydra does.
And it will be interesting to see if somehow, some way, Coulson and his team is one of the reasons why Hydra is born.
That would, I mean, the irony would be so perfect.
Yeah, like there will be a dialogue like, "Oh man, the future us will hate us."
Sorry, it's like that Family Guy bit where he's like, "Take this, future me," and he cuts off his hand. It's like,
Yeah,
"Damn
yeah.
you, past me!"
So those are the timelines that you want explored.
Yeah,
Got it.
you.
Okay, mine, my entry is, of course, the 1990s.
Mm.
Particularly, there's a post Captain Marvel, before Captain Marvel, in between those. Because
Ooh,
Nick Fury is still an agent during that time.
true. Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if I don't know because Agent Coulson is present during that, and he should not forget that. But I don't know if like a throwaway line or a reference like aliens invaded us sometime one time like shape shifting aliens.
Just kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh
Yeah,
my god, why was I so worried about that random Kree thing in the
yeah.
tube?
Like there's so many plot holes that needs to be addressed. Like in some way, Joe, the Chronicons are somewhat the same with the Skrulls because they have that shape-shifting tech, like copying the
Yes.
face. So
Nightmare.
maybe we're going to explore that during 1990s. And also we also saw a glimpse of that during Ant-Man, the Ant-Man first film, where we might see the older Howard Stark during the 90s, an older
True.
Peggy Carter, an older Hank Pym, maybe because
Mm.
it's not a long shot that Howard Stark will show up because he already showed up in Agent Carter series. It's going to happen. Like maybe Dominic Cooper, maybe swoop in for a cameo. What do you think about that?
We we finally get the transition of the actors playing Howard Stark. So we go to that time point where they shift from one actor to another to
Yeah,
explain why they look so similar but different.
and also not just Howard Stark. Maybe we can also see Edwin Jarvis. Just to establish a connection.
That I was thinking about, like they confirmed Sousa, but I think like the character besides Carter herself that I think most people want to see again is Jarvis. And I would kind of love to see a version of Jarvis post the 70s scene where he sees he sees Tony Stark from the future, thank you. And it's just like, huh, that's odd. And then he sees Coulson, it's like, why is so many odd things happening here?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that's an interesting point you mentioned because we might see. Of course, we will not see the older version of the Avengers, but what if we see a younger version of Tony Stark?
I had the same idea. It I kind of thought, wouldn't it be ironic with the original Avengers, because he was the one that started the Avengers technically through his death, that he meets almost every one of the major Avengers as kids. It just kind of inspires them a
Yeah,
little. So he technically did it that way too.
yeah. So maybe we can finally see that. And there are so many possibilities about this show. So I mentioned
Yeah.
1990s. Maybe we can also see the early 2000s, heading towards the first season, even heading towards the Avengers timeline, the 2012 timeline. Maybe we can finally see that. And speak,
if
yeah,
if they had the budget, imagine, because the Endgame already has that scene with the Avengers in the timeline of the original Avengers,
yeah,
and then they have Agents of Shield in the timeline where the Avengers during the original Avengers just like have that triple threat of them also avoiding the Avengers from the future and trying not to get
oh
caught.
my
That would be
god,
fun. I don't think they'd had the budget for it, but that would be hilarious.
that would be fun. That would open up a lot of possibilities, like a lot of opportunities. Like they're also there trying to hide from two groups of the Avengers.
Mm.
Those are the timelines. So we spoke about timelines. How about characters? So before we talk about characters, I mentioned a poll in our Twitter account, Joe, in the past few days,
Hmm.
and I asked our followers, who do you want to see, and who do you want to see return in the upcoming season of Agents of Shield? I have choices as Grant Ward, Bobby Morris, Lance Hunter, other character. And the poll, 51% of the votes voted for Mockingbird or Bobby Morse. They want to see her
Oh
return.
yeah.
27% was Grant Ward, 18% was Lance Hunter, and the rest of them are commenting Robbie Reyes, Lincoln, Lady Sif, Lash. They're also commenting that. So how about our picks? Uh, who do you want to see return? You first. Top three picks of who do you want to see return in the upcoming season of Agents of Shield.
Mhm. So I'll start with number three. I would love to see the return. I think it's a shoe-in. Grant Ward has just been that character in the entire franchise who just did not want to go away. So it would be a great kind of not him again moment, just to have him show up, even if he's a
Yeah,
younger version. Especially because sadly, with the death of was the Bill, I think Bill Paxton,
yeah,
as we can't get John Garrett because I still think John Garrett would have been the perfect choice to return. Which I hope they do pay tribute to him because he was a fantastic part of who I believe kind of saved the first season as well with
yeah.
his energy.
He's very
I
interesting
but
villain.
I with him and oh, sorry. And I would love to see him and Grant Ward return. Number two for me would be the one of the characters that started it all, Mike Peterson, J. August Richards' character, who eventually became Deathlock.
Oh,
He had cameos here and there, but I think he deserves at least one more real return to form, or just see him. Like the thing is for me is I don't know if this timeline shtick is going to be about them also helping people that got screwed over, and I could kind of see Daisy try to save Mike Peterson before he became Deathlock, and I mean that was one thing I just thought of. It would be fun for them to revisit the first episode. Just
yeah, from a different
imagine
perspective.
Fitz commenting, yeah, Fitz just being like, "Was I always that geeky?" and just making fun of himself, or like he didn't have the courage to talk to Simmons at the time. So just play around with that fact. And
Yeah,
number one for me returning is definitely I don't know why he didn't have much of an appearance in the show, but I really want to see this actor do more. And it's especially in the MCU. It's BJ Britt as Antoine Triplet.
oh yeah,
Uh,
love that hero.
Moreover, what I think could work really well is we know that he is a legacy agent. So they were like talking about one of his grandfather, great grandfather was one of the Howling Commandos. So I would
Yes,
love to connect that. I think that would be an incredible little nod to that character, is if we also are introduced to the Howling Commandos and the one who would become the grandfather of Anton Triplet.
and several of the Howling Commandos as well. That will be an interesting addition to the upcoming season.
I mean, the actor who played Dum Dum Dugan showed up on Arrow, so I think he's pretty open to also showing up on a TV show.
Yeah,
And he did have cameos in Agent Carter as well.
yeah, he did show up in season two as a cameo
Yeah.
in the opening scene of episode one. So I figured. Anyway, so those are top three. My turn. uh, my top three. My third on the list is going to be. I can agree with you. I want Grant Ward to return. He's a very complex character. He's a very
Yeah.
interesting character. Like when you see him, you ask yourself, is he going to betray me or is he going to betray the team? Is he going to uh, be on this be on the side? Because there are moments in the past 6 seasons that he's like um, he helps the team for his own motivation, for his own decision, and there are times that
Mhm.
he betrays him just to get the upper hand. So
Yeah.
I want to see that dynamic. I want to see that dynamic now that the team knows like he's evil, but I want to explore that in the upcoming season. Like I know already have a resolution to that, but I want it to be further explored. Next up,
Especially now
yeah,
that Coulson is a very much a robot who can beat him up.
yeah, an LMD. I wonder if he still has that shield in his hand.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I wonder what other abilities does he have right now as an LMD. Because we're going to fully explore that LMD thing this season. Next up, number two on the list is I kind of agree with the fans. I want to see Bobby Moore's Mockingbird
Mm.
return. I want her to return because you know it's such a shame, it's such a bummer when one of the most emotional episodes that I watched that actually teared actually had tears while watching it was during that Spice Goodbye.
Yeah,
spicy. That was gut wrenching. That was really emotional. And that was the last time that we saw Bobby. And I want her to return upcoming season just to help out on a mission. I don't care if it's the past or the present. Just would fit with the timeline wise. But I want to see
mm,
her help out with a mission. Just just know that she's okay. That she's having a good life.
definitely. Yeah.
Like a close resolution to that. And the last one, kind of, I have an honorable mention here. I would kind of before I go to the first one. Uh, I want. I also want Trip to return. Triplet. Yeah, I want that guy to return.
He had, I mean, that guy, I loved his energy with Daisy. It was just a lot of fun to watch him on screen, and I was really happy when he returned the framework, and he was still exactly the same there.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's the same dynamic.
Yeah.
I love the dynamic between him and Daisy, really, and it will be interesting to see how he if he returns, if ever he returns, how will they incorporate him in the storyline?
Mm-hmm.
And okay. So the first one, of course, I would agree that Robbie Reyes should return. Ghost Rider,
Oh yeah,
just
yeah.
in case, not in the entire season. Just just one episode. Like fans will definitely love it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like it
I
will
kind of I
brand.
kind of want to see the reaction of the if this is post like the deal he made with Coulson. And it's just
Yeah.
like you're supposed to be dead, man.
How you're still
The
here?
spirit
How
of
you're still
penance just
alive, bro?
yeah,
I want to see
just
him. I want to see him
pissed
return
off.
because he's a very interesting character in season 4,
Mm,
and I kind of want to see more of his power set. I think his power set will be beneficial. Will be helpful in the fight against the Chronicons.
true, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's.
Well, that's
eh,
the thing is like the sad thing is for his character, he was supposed to spin off into his own show, so
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to kind of cram him back in. They did tease that they would see him again, so it's really confusing how they're going to handle that.
yeah, and all of these characters, like, oh, of course, Ghost Rider, Bobby, uh, they're not going just to be there just to set up something. Like
No,
they're going to be guest stars for either a resolution to the arc or a fan service kind of moment or just a fun addition to the episode. Just want to give like this season is like a celebration of Ages of Shield as a show in the past
no,
7 years, right? And it would be great to
definitely.
see these characters returning. So moving on, the next thing that we're going to talk about is the villains, the Chronicons. I always agree that when it was first announced that the Chronicons are like faceless villains. I don't know, they have face, of course, but faceless villains in like they're like henchmen, like they're like emotionless. Their only motivation is like to corrupt Shield, to stop Shield from ever happening.
Mm.
That's their motivation, right? So, as a question, Joe, aside from them, do you think that there will be a main villain, an overarching main villain? If so, who do you want it to be?
It's a tough thing. It's because on the one hand, time travel is always connected to Kang. I
Yeah,
wonder if this is a potential connection to the Loki upcoming show as well, because we know how the rules are for Endgame with time travel. How's that show going to work?
yeah,
Uh, the thing is for me is that I'm unsure if it's going to be like okay, it's the Chronicoms directly because we're still unsure why do they want to get rid of Shield because every time that if there was no Shield the Avengers might not have happened as they did, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a question of how this House of Cards is going to collapse on itself at one point. I think it would be fun if the main villain is some form of probably just Kang making a cameo to connect it.
yeah.
But there were also others like I think one character I obscure called Chronarch, who was like a janitor at a science lab who became a time traveler. something that's extremely random could be. It's kind of the fun aspect is that we have no idea where they're going, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's something completely out of left field that just makes everyone go, wait, what? And then he's the main villain for the last like 3-4 episodes.
Yeah, I think that you know uh, they will be exploring that aspect. Um, I think we haven't seen the true leader of the Chronicons, right? Like we've
No, that's also interesting. Yeah.
yeah we've seen the head honchos, like the board of directors kind of thing in the season 6, right? Like Enoch was there, and like they're talking about uh, okay, this is our mission, this is something else, but we haven't seen the one pulling the strings. It's very
Mm.
interesting because there are a lot of there are a plethora of possibilities and who could that be, because they're alien, they're alien, there are a lot. Could we finally see Fox characters here? I doubt, but maybe.
Mhm.
But there are a lot here that who is going to be the one pulling the strings, and that's a question in my mind. So my pick would be, actually my actual pick is an unnamed one, because I wonder who is that. I think they're saving it. They're saving the reveal
Mm.
in this season because production is finished and none has leaked. So that's interesting. So yeah, go.
I mean, I had one thought that it might have been a Chronicom whose body was taken over, or who has the mind of Hive.
Oh yeah.
So the connect, because I do think that like the kind of stupid thing about this setup is that we don't have a villain that emotionally connects to the past seasons.
Hmm.
So it would make sense to me with the time travel rules that at one point Chronicoms went back, and this would be kind of funny because it fits the show, that one of the Chronicoms who became the leader stole a different dimensions face from Grant Ward, for example.
Cool. Well,
You can play with it.
yeah, we can do that definitely. But also one of the possibilities is we saw the in season 5 we saw the Confederacy. Maybe one of those characters,
Yeah,
one of those race, not characters, one of those races, one of the race in there. Maybe the
true.
Kree. The Kree has been the come to think of it, just realizing it now, the Kree has been like there in the past in
Yeah.
Ages of Shield. The Kree body. Oh my God, I have this. Sorry, I have this connection right
Hmm.
now. What if the villain is the one that? What if this is entirely speculation, pure speculation? What if the villain is the one that the alien that they got the blood is the one that died in that season
Oh.
1? What if it's finally going to be addressed that that is the villain, and when they defeated it, they gave it to the current Shield team on that exact timeline, and that hey, this could help you someday. Like Coulson will like
Hmm.
Coulson will like will tell them, or I don't know, not Coulson, maybe other people, because maybe Deke, because he's not really present in other timelines, and maybe telling them that hey, this alien might be helpful someday for some regeneration process in the future. Maybe that would tie all the things.
I like that idea. Yeah, because I can see a lot of like what's happening in time travels that they kind of put a lot of elements into motion, like with the idea with Hydra. They do the same thing with like they save a Kree warrior, or the main villain is this warrior who he ends up saving, and it's actually the one through which Coulson is saved. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, really. Like it just the idea came upon me like literally several seconds ago. So, so that's something that we can possibly think. And if that happens, my God, today at the week of May 22nd, a week before season 7, I first addressed it. So
You heard it here first, folks.
heard it here first on the MC Exchange podcast. Very interesting. And going our next topic is the ending. But before we go there, I'm curious, Joe. In
Hmm.
past time travel adventures, in time travel movies, they have this device, like in Men in Black, like when
Hmm.
you point. point this device to someone, they forget the memory of the adventure that transpired, of the happenings, of the events that transpired.
Hmm.
I wonder if they have that device here, because Fitz and Simmons can actually do that. Like, can actually make a device that can, when you point it to someone, the memory of that certain someone will be lost. Like, it will be saved.
Mm.
It will be saved in order to preserve the timeline. Do you think that a device would exist in the upcoming season for that?
Hmm. It would make sense that they have some way to kind of protect themselves, but at the same time, I have a feeling that it's going to be the classic old I punch him in the face hard enough he forgets what happened
Yeah.
way of forgetting. I mean, at the same time, it makes sense because they're in the short snippet we saw, they're just trying to hide away and blend in. So I just don't think they have the technology, except if the Chronicoms have that and it's built into Coulson, for example. So that would be possible.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about other possibilities here first before we go to the deep end for the ending. Agent Coulson, life model decoy, LMD haven't been explored yet, not yet explored in the MCU, even in Marvel
Mm.
TV. I mean, not yet explored fully. What do you think are the abilities of this new Coulson, or the main difference between this Coulson to the Coulson that we know?
Uh, I'm definitely. I would say that he's stronger. Faster. He's a super efficient robot or whatever he's supposed to be with the memories. I
Yeah,
hope he has a shield. I hope he has a lot of the abilities he had with his fake hand
yeah,
because it's
like the
something from his
knowledge.
memory he knows how to use.
Yeah,
And I mean, I don't. The problem is that if they go super gimmicky, it could ruin the moment. Like if he has, it would be funny if like he looking back at Lola, he just can fly for no reason,
all right.
which
Yeah,
which
I want
opens
to
the
see Lola
question to
too.
me if we're going to see Lola. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think they should overdo it with the gimmicks. I think they should just keep that he's stronger than what he used to be. He has a shield, uh, and I don't think he should have like if he has a rocket punch, like his fist jumps off his arm, that
Mhm.
would be pretty hilarious because it fits Coulson as a character.
Yeah,
But I don't think he's going to have like a lot of gimmicks as such because it does seem like the focus is more on the emotional aspect of the final season and him being, not human.
and I think the best superpower of this LMD Coulson is his knowledge of Shield
Yeah.
and the team, and being this all-knowing kind of person in the team is very helpful in the fight against the
Mhm.
Chronicons and to save the history of not just Shield but the entire world
No,
for MCU.
I just thought we
Okay.
could call him Cole MD as a
Yeah.
name.
Oh, yeah. That's a cool name. Cole MD. Much entire like the son of Cole from Sif.
Son of
Yeah.
Cole.
Okay. So we're now at the last part of our prediction. The ending. We already seen the true. I mean, the one of the endings of Agents of Shield season 5, because it's literally the title of the episode is the end. And now we're here at season 7 with all this time travel shenanigans, and now we're already speculating how will this end. Joe, what are your thoughts about this ending so
I
far?
have uh I have three ideas how it could
Okay,
end.
let's explore that.
So my first idea was that pretty much it all involves time travel. So I have a feeling that whatever the ending will be there's either the passing of the torch, so that Cole MD kind of just he did his job, they saved the world, he passes it on to the next generation and just shuts down because he doesn't want to live this life.
Yeah,
So pretty much, I have a feeling that the ending is going to be about Coulson because he's the reason the show exists. So that he either makes a sacrifice. I don't think we're going to have a Terminator 2 moment, but he's still going to kind of like, if you need me, you know where to find me, but let me rest now. My second theory would be him potentially meeting himself as a kid. if it's a lot like with your, I kind of had the idea with your idea, like he keeps everything they do now through time travel is pretty much to set the first season into motion to some degree.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he pretty much gets a chance to just see himself and pretty much pass on just some memento, something that he has carried. Like I could see that would be a perfect like through line for the season. Is at the beginning of the season, he gets the cards, the Captain America cards,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of the show, gives them to a younger self of himself.
That's a poetic ending. It's a great ending.
It because it also then is like the Kickstarter of his history and everything. And then he like the kid goes, "Where are you from? Shield." And then that like kickstarts his entire evolution of a character as well. I think you can do a lot with that. And the other option I had, and this one is for me, which I think would be the perfect tie-in with Endgame, is the only real mainstay MCU character I always wanted to see on Agents of Shield, is they are back in time in the 1930s or 1940s, and Coulson sees Captain America from the future,
Yeah.
and both being characters
Really?
out of
Oh my god.
time. It just fits because Captain America, like I like my second version a bit more because I feel like it's disconnected for more about Shield than about the MCU. But at the same time, I feel like you need that big MCU moment to really tie it all back together. Because I'm curious about with the rumors of a Secret Warrior show if they're gonna be like, should we use some setups from the show to kind of say, oh, this is Coulson, this is what he's been doing. He was alive, but this is like disconnected from that show.
Yeah.
I hope they don't, but I do have a feeling they want to keep Coulson around. I personally would really hope that Clark Gregg continues this role in some format, even if it's just like to show up as Coulson and introduce elements or stuff like that. But I could see them kind of have that final connection and say just Captain America and Coulson just talking and kind of exchanging what happened since he died.
Oh my god, that's very interesting.
These are just some ideas I had. What did you think of?
Oh, okay. I have several actually. I've been really
Ooh,
wrapping my mind about this in the past few days. Um,
get ready for this
there's-
episode.
yeah, there's like I'm actually, if I'm the writer, I put my shoes. If I'm a writer, how will I end the show? So for me,
Mhm.
first off, the team, the show will finally address the snap at the end of at the end of the season finale. It's like, how do you do this? So in my mind, they defeated the Chronicons, they saved the world, blah blah blah, and then their time machine, their uh, what's the name of the jet? What's the name?
The
It's not the
Zephyr.
bus, right? Zephyr. The
No, the
Zephyr.
bus was the original.
Yeah, the bus is the first few seasons. After it was after it exploded in season two. So the Zephyr, I don't know if it malfunctions or if they decided to move forward to if they decided to come back to the current timeline because you can see at the end of season six, uh, at the end of the it's in there like the battle against the fake Coulson.
Mm. Sarge.
They decide the Sarge, yeah, they decided to go back to that current timeline, and then when they got back, it will be after just checking the timeline
Mm.
after the Avengers killed Thanos
Mm.
in 2018, 3 weeks after the snap. They went there and they see the world. They see the world vastly different. Uh, no cars in the streets, no people on less people on the streets. It's like ghost town, and then just a tease. This is one of the endings. I'm not saying this is the ending. But for me, this is one of the endings
Mm.
in my mind. They're seeing that, and then Coulson is not there already because I kind of agree with your ending that he's passing in the legacy and he's
Yeah.
shutting down, and then Daisy and the team uh just their last line would be, "What the hell happened here?" Cut to black. Secret Wars will return.
That would be interesting.
That's one of the possible endings for me. That's one alternate ending.
Mm.
Next alternate ending for me is an epilogue. They save the world. Okay, Coulson shutting down, addressing that, going with your ending as well, and cut to black, and then an epilogue of the life of the characters as when they went back to the current timeline. When they went back to the current timeline, this will be 2020, 2023 maybe during that time.
Mm.
But moving ahead, like a 5 year later, 3 years later, I don't care. But after the snap, so you see Daisy moving
Mm.
forward with her life. She's still setting up Shield, and then potentially meeting. I mean, Daisy and Mac. Those are the two characters no, just Daisy, because Mac, I have other ending for Mac. Sorry, it's really
Mm-hmm.
curled up because I have really had a lot of possibilities in my mind. So Daisy moving forward with her Shield life, and then being recruited by Nick Fury in the end for Sword, and then Fitz and Simmons living a quiet life as a married couple at last
In peace.
in peace, and then Mac and Yo-Yo living a quiet life as well, living a covert life. Shield files deleted. They're
Mm.
off the grid per se, as well as Fitz and Simmons, just to protect their lives. And then
Yeah.
final shot will be Agent May, heading over to the cemetery, looking over at the grave of Phil Coulson,
Mm.
offering her respects, and then riding over the sunset. Cap ending. Back. That's one.
That's a good one, huh? A
Yeah,
Felinda ending.
yeah, because that's like the aside from the, no, aside from Sky Daisy, the Felinda is what anchors the show, right?
Yeah, definitely.
One of the major anchors, along with Fitz and Simmons. And I would love the characters to have that sense of peace, at the ending, because you've done your job, you saved the world several times, you deserve this peaceful ending.
Yeah.
Aside from Daisy, Secret Warriors.
You don't. You have to go back to work.
Yeah, you have to go back to her because you're a hero.
Stop your emo face.
You have a lot of powers. Like you have this quake powers. You deserve to be part of the future moving forward. And the other one, the last one for me, it is based on a screenwriter's perspective. So like I'm just laying out all the scenes as you can see. Last one would be Agent Coulson. I dubbed it Agent Coulson Legacy. Um, it will be it will be connected to the endings that I mentioned, the epilogue. In this
Mhm.
ending, though, Nick Fury is there because Samuel L. Jackson is really open. Has been open to portray Nick Fury in Agents of Shield. Right, he appeared twice already, and even in one episode.
True.
One episode would be Nick Fury in the ending. Nick Fury, uh, like little showing off the legacy of Agent Coulson. There's this part in the Sword office, like a tribute to Agent Coulson and his missions and his achievements, like a memoir,
Mm.
like there. And then you can see that, like, obviously we can't uh, sh- show the Avengers here because that's really big budget and MCU ties and whatever. But it would imply, well, a line from Nick Fury would imply, like, before the screen cuts to black, Nick Fury will say, "Time to
Mm.
rest, time to rest, old friend. It's okay. I already told them." That line just implies that I
Mm.
already told them that you were alive all this time. Caps off the frustrations, or caps off the predictions of fans that when will the Avengers find out that Coulson was alive? That maybe Nick Fury will be the one to address that through a line, through an implied line that you're not
Mm.
gonna. It's not gonna say, "Oh, the Avengers know you're alive." It's like he's just gonna say, "Time to rest now. I told them it's okay. Like that.
Mm-mm.
Cut to black.
Like have
Those are
have
my
a
endings.
sequence of. No, I like them. I like the last one where like short scene of Coulson seeing the Avengers like before Endgame and just seeing them as a group talking, and he's like, I don't belong there, and he's at his end, and then Fury tells him or something. That would be a really nice ending. Yeah.
Or maybe I have another long shot ending, like not
Mm-hmm.
ending, like a scene that we can incorporate in the ending. We can see Fury after the funeral with his attire after the funeral of Tony Stark, going back to his uh going back to the headquarters, and then we saw him talking to maybe Phil or May, like,
Mm.
where have you been? Oh, just paid my respects to an old friend.
That would work. Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. Like, that it's like a subtle sign to fans that, hey, we're back in the MCU.
Mm. Or even like with you could use the sequence where you say with May bringing a rose to Phil Coulson's grave that she finds like trinkets from all the Avengers.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my God,
That
that's
would be
awesome.
pretty cool too. Yeah. Oh
The
man, do
cards
we
will
have
be
to say
there.
goodbye to Phil Coulson
Like,
again?
oh yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe the tribute of May is not the flowers. Maybe it's going to be the cards.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like hey, Cap wants you to have this. Oh, that would be great.
Oh, there's so many yeah, there's a lot they can do. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be an exciting season.
Gonna be an exciting season 7, and it premieres next week on ABC, May 27th. That's Wednesday. It's 8 p.m. I think. Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Mm.
So if you have any more predictions about the characters, the ending, the villains, and the timelines, you can also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/mcexchange and give your predictions there. And also, you can also comment it when we post this on Facebook. It's facebook.com/themcuexchange. Please do so we can, give you a shout out to the next episode. You can also follow me on Twitter if you agree with my ending, if you want to know my thoughts more, if you want to share your thoughts and you want to discuss with me, feel free to follow me on Twitter. That's twitter.com/Aaronchino. That's AERONCHINO. You can also follow Joe and discuss with Joe.
I'm at that Bell, THATABERL, and be sure to tell me if you find my endings crappy or not.
Oh no. And this has been another Shield centric episode of the MCU Exchange podcast. A very, very special episode. We'll have Charles back next week. Don't worry about that, guys. And thank you for listening. Keep safe, everyone. Goodbye.
Until next time.
Till next time.